And this is different than anything, any clinic around.
Workouts that are tailored for her, and that really makes a difference.
Really personal. I've gotten way more mobile, stronger, flexible. Just everything just improves me to the next level.
Welcome to the On Cue Performance Therapy Podcast, where we push sports performance and physical therapy to its apex. We change the game by bringing together the brightest minds in the field to offer best practices and question how things are done today. I'm your host, Mike Quintans, physical therapist and expert in sports orthopedics. I'm living my dream and opened a clinic that unites all elements of sports medicine under one roof to drive recovery and performance outcomes. What's up, Performance Therapy Nation? This is Mike Quintans, your host of the On Cue Performance Therapy Podcast. Today, you're getting a full dose of me, Mike Quintans. We're going to do a solo cast. I'm going to be joined by Shelly, who handles the DJ board. And I can't wait to share with everyone my story, my background, and what's pushed me to get to where I am today. I think it's also very important that we thank our listeners and our subscribers. The reviews are climbing every single week. So thank you, guys. We appreciate the feedback. I've gotten a ton of feedback lately. We got coaches, we got physicians, we got ATCs on the way, athletic trainers, maybe even a couple athletes we got in the lineup. So this is exciting. So thank you, listeners. And please, if you haven't yet, please subscribe and leave a review. All right, so let's get into this. My background is not crazy unique. It's somewhat unique in some ways, and I, Shelly's going to jump in here and there and keep me on track because I'm good at wandering off at times. But my story is somewhat unique in that my vision has changed a lot of different ways along the from beginning to end. And as a kid in high school in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, right outside Philadelphia, I wanted to work with athletes. I knew that athletes would have to rehabilitate their injuries. And that was a passion of mine to help them do that and be an expert in the body and health and so forth. So what have found is that I went to shadow just to get an idea if I actually really liked it. And I fell in love with the outpatient clinic I shadowed. I noticed that they were helping not only athletes, but mom and dad, weekend warriors, Joe Schmo, get back to their passion. So that became, super attractive. And then from there, I went on to Bloomsburg University, played football there, majored in biology, and, that was tough. I did not like bio at all going into college, but I knew that's what I had to do to get into PT school. And PT school is 4 years, or 3 years rather, 4 years undergrad. And while at Bloomsburg University, I went through 2 ACL surgeries. And so I got an idea of what the rehab process was like, the pitfalls of it, what it's like from an ATC's perspective, from the physician's perspective, and even got, I think, 200 hours just to apply, 200 hours of shadowing PTs in different settings, the hospital, the rehab, and outpatient setting before applying. So in applying to physical therapy school, I get into Weidner University, which is Delco's finest, in Chester, PA, one of the most beautiful towns in Delaware County. And I loved it there. They had all the same professors for the last 14 years, fell in love with it, great experiences, have a lot of friends still from there that I keep in touch with. The faculty there is amazing, and their facility is beautiful. So from there, I think my passion for sports started to stir up a little bit, and I was hungry to learn. There's so much about the human body that's covered in PT school for 3 years. It's like the equivalent of like 130 credits. And it's all jam-packed. I mean, I think we had 3 weeks off at one point, but during our affiliations, which is like a residency, where you're expected to treat a percentage of your instructor's caseload, like sports kept coming. Like you would see an athlete and you'd be like, "Ooh, an athlete!" Like they want to get back to their high school sport. It was so, and there's a lot of politics and PT in this area where certain groups will send to their PT office. So it can be a grind to get these athletes in because they're going to go to some of the bigger groups that have their own PT offices. And unfortunately, Weidner did not allow their students to do their affiliations at a physician-owned physical therapy practice just because they thought it was unethical. And in some states, actually, it's illegal. So that's interesting in of itself. So diving deeper into this, my passion to learn came right out of school. I got into a residency program, went into orthopedic residency program, and I got a clinical certification in orthopedics after about 3 years. Had leadership positions right out, and something about the business of it was attractive to me, and the numbers and the stats and what's interesting in physical therapy, like most sports, that the stats, if the stats look good, then you're performing well and people are getting better. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and the bottom line is going to look good too. Mm-hmm. So there's a way you can do that with integrity and not see 50 people in a day, or legitimately like see 20 people in an 8-hour day. There's ways you can do that and still make money in physical therapy, seeing 10 people a day, at least in this area. And so that was attractive to me. If we can keep all these measurables where they need to be and do a good job, then we can make money, we can grow, and we're offering a great product because we're not seeing 15, 20 people a day. That was super attractive to me. So managed my own clinic, managed a clinic under this private company umbrella for 3 years, grew to about 6 PTs. It was a blast. Their family to me to this day. And I just kept seeing these athletes would come in, and this is your run-of-the-mill PT clinic, meaning the resources are limited. A 15-pound kettlebell is like the heaviest weight we had. We had heavy bands I bought off Amazon. We had cones. Like we didn't have a squat rack. We didn't have a treadmill that went faster than 10 miles an hour. I mean, it wasn't a performance facility, flat out. And at this clinic, we did manual therapy, 20, 30 minutes on each patient as indicated. And then when it came to strengthening, some of these higher level athletes, one in particular, and he wouldn't mind me dropping his name, Chris Newell. Shelley was a patient of mine as well. And Chris and both Shelley are great examples of athletes who had relatively severe injuries that needed to perform at a certain level for them to get back to doing what they love to do. And for Chris, it meant a career, means a career. He's at University of Virginia right now. And Shelley's a Krav Maga instructor. And that's a big part of, her life. So, I didn't have the resources to do that. And we talk a lot about communication, whether it's with physicians or athletic trainers or personal trainers. And that's something that I wanted to get into. So Chris Newell introduces me to Jordan. Chris Newell trained with Jordan. Chris Newell's a baseball player, University of Virginia, Malvern Prep, state championship, finally got healthy, like right into playoffs, hit 6 home runs, 4 games, something crazy like that, bottom of the 7th, 2 outs, like go-ahead home run. Like, it's like storybook. It's impressive. He's a great kid. He deserves it. He deserves the world. But so I have this meeting with Jordan. I mentioned this in a previous podcast. And Jordan is a strength and conditioning coach here at the Physical Therapy and Wellness Institute in Newtown Square, and at the time was somewhere else. And we're sitting down to develop, see if we can put together like a relationship where I would send him clients that are ready to leave PT more often than not, because I didn't have the resources, A, and B, insurance was done paying for them because they were functional, not ready to perform, but functional. And he may have had clients that were injured or not ready to perform, were having issues with function. And by the end of this 2-hour conversation, we're like, what are we doing? Like, we can just do this ourselves, right? Like, why not? Right. So I meet with Jim Fagnani, and Jim Fagnani is regional director here at the Physical Therapy and Wellness Institute, also known as PTW. And we meet at a Starbucks out in like King of Prussia. This is probably like February 2019, something like that. And I just gotten back from CSM. So CSM is a combined sections meeting, which sections of physical therapy from orthopedics, oncology, pediatrics, sports. I mean, all the realms, right? Everything. Private practice, there's so much. Acute care, Melanie would kill me if I didn't say that. Cardiopulmonary, and my wife belongs to those two groups. And so all these sections come together, and it was like a ton of like sports. Mike Reinold, all these big names, right? Like Mike Reinold, James Andrews, and they're all talking about like baseball, like throwing 10 months a year will result like 10 times likely to injure your elbow, and all these pearls are getting thrown around. And I'm like, I love this. And I saw gaps like in care for kids. And at this point, like I'm like jazzed up on like sports medicine, like especially for like the young athlete and the weekend warriors too. Understanding biomechanics, how the foot lands on a treadmill or on the ground, and how that propels force, like how the posterior chain of the glutes and the hamstrings and the calves propel the body forward, and just trying to understand all these mechanics. And I just got like real jazzed up about it for like this 3-month period. And Jim, hits me up on LinkedIn, and we're sitting down. I get a nitro for the first time ever. Don't ask me why I remember that. Awesome killer. I love nitros now. And he's like, all right, so this is what we do. And I was like, all right, that sounds good. I mean, I just don't know if it's like what I want to do right now. And he's like, well, what do you want? Like, hot shot? Like, what's up? What do you want to do? I was like, honestly, I want 4,000 square feet. I want 1 patient an hour. I want turf. I want squat racks. I want a strength conditioning coach. I want state-of-the-art equipment. And, and I want to like accept all insurances too, because I want this to scale. I want to help more than just the people who can afford it to pay out of pocket. I want to help everybody. If you have insurance, we should help you. I'm expecting like, okay, dude, good luck. Have a good one. It was nice talking to you. And he said the complete opposite. He said, okay, let's see if the numbers work. I was like, what? Is this guy serious? He actually is considering this. He goes, all right, like, what's the payer mix in that area? Like how much, like, are you going to be able to pull in from the sports performance side of things? How much are you going to need to start it up? Because they have the relationships with the insurance companies here at Ivy Rehab, which is that's the umbrella company over PTW. And the numbers work. So we pitch, we put together the business plan, we pitch it, it gets accepted, and we open it. And I think the key is, go ahead. What are you thinking?
Well, no, my question is, when you see this very visible gap, right? Where, I went through it too, where we had 15-pound kettlebells and we had to put 3 or 4 different bands on this kettlebell and under my feet in order to have some kind of resistance that resembled what I was going through before I got hurt, right? Before my ACL surgery. What does that do to an athlete mentally? Because there is this huge gap, right? There's this where I'm going from, doing step-ups to going back to Krav Maga, right? That's a huge gap. So what's that doing to an athlete physically and mentally? And then have you ever seen a clinic like what you're dreaming of?
Those are great questions. I think what that does to an athlete is it can mess with your psyche, in that your confidence comes from your ability, your preparation. And when you've prepared just as hard as anybody else in a familiar setting, right? Like you play on a turf field, practice on the turf field, practice on the same field, right? You hit 90-mile-per-hour fastballs during the game, hit them in practice. And if you're not able to mimic that environment in some way, that can mess with your psyche, especially when you're coming back from an injury, right? So I remember coming back from an ACL and not knowing, like the first ACL, I knew I could cut. Like I cut 1,000,000 times. I was golden. I was ready to go. I was fine. And I didn't re-injure that one for a couple of years, but that's a long story. But my point here is that not having the resources for an athlete when recovering from a severe injury before returning to that sport, like an ACL tear or any injury really, if they're going from the clinic to the next week they're on the field, practicing at 100%, that's a problem. They're just not ready for that yet. They need to ramp up. Right. And that's on the athletic trainer and in communication from the PT to the athletic trainer that, listen, this is what they're capable of. And here are my suggestions, but, handing it off to you. So that's a great question. I think the other side of that is if we're not providing enough, time and care, then, it is what it is. Well, you got to find a way. So finding a way to get the resources can be difficult. So you use bands, you use a 15-pound kettlebell with bands, tied under a step box so you can do, mimic a deadlift. So you find a way to get it done, but it's not what's best for the athlete. It's better than nothing. So in transitioning to what my dream clinic, would look like, have I seen anything like this before in this area? No, not that I'm aware of. But there are PT companies across the country that, or at least clinics that have something similar. And I think, getting into research, it would be really special. And a lot of those clinics do research. I'm not sure how many of those clinics accept insurance, to be honest with you. I think that's what's unique, is that if you have insurance, you can come here. I think some of these other places, to go to physical therapy, you need cash. And in my opinion, at least in this area, this demographic, the money is there. I get that part. But people have the money here because they didn't spend it. And I admire that. I think that's great. So if that individual, that patient is going to come here 3 times a week or 2 times a week because they have the means of doing so with their insurance, then they're going to get better faster. If they're paying out of pocket, they may not come, 10 to 14 times over the course of, 5 to 7 weeks. They may come once a week, and they're not going to get there, as quickly as they should. And so that's my 2 cents on insurance with and accepting insurance. It's a huge deal to me, is to be able to accept insurance. I could work my butt off and run my own clinic and take cash only and do just fine. But this is about scaling, and that's my other passion behind all this, is that I didn't want this clinic, this idea I had of putting these 2 worlds together, and it only helping people that can afford it. That's bogus to me. I have a good buddy of mine, Chase. We'll get him on sometime. He works in Upper Darby, lives in Upper Darby. He's a strength coach, self-taught. We'll get him on. He'll tell a story. But we get athletes that are not from some of the places around here that didn't grow up with parents who have college educations and make $100,000, $150,000 a year. We help them here. They have insurance. We're going to help them, and most of them do. So. And if not, we'll find a way. We'll make it work. So I've been very fortunate enough to have relationships in different areas of Delaware County, which is a melting pot, as you know. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but this is, solo cast, as you call it. That's my passion behind this kind of environment, and there's more coming. I can tell you that much. Like, we got more of these coming, hopefully to a town near you. But it all comes down to people who care. You can have the best equipment, you can have the turf, you can have the squat racks, but if you don't have the right team around you, you don't have a chance. And a passionate physical therapist, they can be tough to find. A lot of them get burned out seeing 15, 20 patients a day. But when you're put in an environment where you can thrive and you're passionate about anything, then why not? As a leader, it's my job to help facilitate their growth and development. And I think that's what I have a great opportunity to do here with the team I have around me. And Brian Jerv is a great example in our first episode, where he is very into GOP and the Titleist Performance Institute, that screening process that I have a certification in as well. And so does Jordan. And so does another one of our PTs, Joe. And if we can give them an opportunity to use that skill set, and that's what they're passionate about, then why not? As long as the bottom line makes sense and it's going to help people and it's going to drive their passion, Why not? We got to manage expectations. That's not all Joe's going to do here or Jordan, but it's something to keep them fired up, and it's another resource for our patients. Why not? That's the key, in my opinion. Hire great PTs who are passionate about what they do, and you got to be selective. They got to fit the culture. You can be an amazing PT, but if you can't fit in on a team, or you're not willing to, get up and grab your PT a hot pack, your teammate, then that's a problem. You got to fit the culture, and that's something we're building here. And I'm excited to see what the future looks like.
Nice. So Jim was a good leader in giving you an opportunity to take ownership over this thing that you were building. What's your strategy behind hiring? And what's your strategy behind building this environment that is we've talked a lot. I'm not super involved in your hiring, but I'm involved in your marketing and your business strategy and, your public relations. And what's your strategy behind hiring the right people in order to get the kinds of clients and patients you want through the door?
That's a great question. I've been super fortunate in that everyone I've hired, I've been recommended to hire by somebody else. So yes, do we put things up online for potential applications and employees? Sure, we do. And I want people to still apply through there. That's, because that's a great pipeline. But everyone's been recommended to me one way or another, or has reached out to me. That's probably been the coolest part of this whole thing, is that people have reached out to me, professionals like PTs, doctors of physical therapy, have reached out to me. One in particular, right out of school, couldn't find work during COVID, and said, hey, I'll work for you as an aide. I'll take aide pay, right, which is like $14, $15 maybe, that much an hour. And he's got a doctorate degree, passes boards, because he wants an opportunity to work in an environment like this. And that's not me, pumping my chest up or anything. That says something about what we're building here. That's pretty cool. And he didn't know this place from anywhere else until he looked us up online and stopped in and introduced himself and handed me his resume and met the team. But I think the strategy is to find like-minded people who care the same way you care, right? So I grew up in an environment where we like to break stones a little bit. We have a good time. It's like a barber shop, hair salon in here sometimes. I talk to other people's patients and vice versa. That's a healthy environment, in my opinion, where that facilitates happiness. Everyone who walks in the door on the PT side, they're in pain. They're hurting. They don't want to have to come here to try and get healthy. That's tough. So we got to facilitate a happy and an environment where people can enjoy themselves, and maybe we reduce the stress of what they're dealing with at home that may be contributing to their pain, because they're having a good time. An environment like that's a good thing.
So what's your ideal from your vision, right? Let's take a certain patient, or let's take a certain client. What's your ideal kind of, circle of life for that person? Maybe it's right before they have surgery, right? Let's say it's right before they have surgery. What do you imagine that relationship should look like and has looked like at this clinic in the relationship to you guys? Yeah,
it's another good question. We want to be there. This business is about relationships. I think myself and the PTs that work here could probably do just about a lot of other things and make more money even than they're doing here. And so the reason we get into a field like this is because of relationships, and that's a great example. And that someone walks in the door before their surgery, and we've had this. I'm getting surgery in 2 weeks on my shoulder. I kind of heard about the place, or I drove by, wanted to check it out. My daughter goes here, whatever. And we'll take them on a tour, introduce them to the PTs, introduce them to the team, answer any questions they have, tell them how we can help them, ask them questions. What do you want to get back to doing? That's what it comes down to in the end. It's not about what I think is best for them. What do you want to get back to doing? Oh, I just don't want to have pain. No, give me more than that, right? Tell me, what sports do you want to get back to? What activity do you want to get back to? Sometimes it's, I just want to be able to pick up my granddaughter. Sweet. All right, this is how we can help you do it. And then you're instilling some confidence, and while you're managing expectations at the same time. That's how it starts, right? So that's how the relationship starts, and they have the surgery, and they come in for PT, and we schedule them at that point in time before. Hopefully, we can do prehab with them. That would be awesome. Come in before your surgery. Let's get those muscles stronger without irritating anything. Let's get your joint mobility and range of motion better, et cetera. So address any impairments we can going into procedures. Research shows that a stiff knee before a total knee replacement is going to be stiff afterwards and may need manipulation. Come in before, get loosened up so that knee isn't so stiff going into the procedure, so you're not so stiff after. So that's just an example of how prehab can be beneficial. And then from that point, we facilitate when they start based on what the protocol is from the surgeon in this case, and like you mentioned. And once they get to a certain point where they're functional, and a lot of the time we want them to hit 100%, meaning no pain, return to an activity. Doesn't mean they're the best performer at that activity or they've reached their potential at that activity. But ideally that's the goal, depending on what that activity is and how functional they are. And insurance can have a lot to say about that, limiting visits, units that you're paying for out of your own pocket. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. And then
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
Another episode.
Talk about insurances next time. But from there, we pass them over to Jordan and Jamie. Jamie's a personal trainer here, and she works with our clients one-on-one. And Jordan does more sports performance, but also does the one-on-one training. And we talk about what we want them to do. Here are their deficits. This is what movements we want them to avoid. Here are their precautions. This is here's the focus. Let's put our heads together, put together a program for them. Jordan, you and Jamie, you use your expertise on the best exercises based on what we just discussed. You're running the show, and we're here if you need us. That's a cool part. That person walks in, and we have clients, previous patients doing that now. They walk in, they're like, I'm starting to get that thing in my back again. What was that muscle energy technique you showed me? How do I address that? All right, hop up on the turf. Let me show you real quick. All right, try that movement again. Is it any better? Treat, test. Yeah, actually that helps a little bit. All right, perfect. There you go. So let me print that out for you real quick. You can take that with you. Am I charging him $1 for that? Yeah,
right.
But he's going to go train with, or she's going to go train with, Jamie or Jordan that moment in time. And we have had athletes that were hurt at practice, and they come in here, and Jordan notices that they're limping, or one of us notice, and go see a PT on the other side real quick. They'll do a screening on you, and we can help facilitate care. We communicate that to the parents and the coaches and the trainers. We have physicians in our office now. That's always an option for our patients, assuming we're not stepping on anyone's toes. So that's what we're building here. That's the continuum of care, right? So they can continue their training here, and we'll work with whoever we can work with to help that individual. That's what it comes down to. It's a people thing. All right.
So good.
All right. Cool. What else you got? Are we wrapping it up?
No, I think we talked about this a lot. I think we talked about this with Dr. Brandon Eck. We talked about this with Dr. Trisha Beatty.
Yep.
That this population that is really attracted to your clinic is the high school baseball player, football player that is looking to play in college, and it's a lot of pressure on them. They're doing a lot, and a lot of times they're not 100% truthful when they're not feeling too hot. So I think this is giving them an opportunity to voice their concerns where they don't feel like they have to be 100% all the time, because they see what this cycle looks like of recovery, right? It's not linear. And I think this is a perfect example of, like you said before, we have this wall in between kind of the physical therapy and the performance side of things, right? That it's not a one-way street. And I think that allows for a lot of flexibility, and I think it's a model that people have to start picking up, because number one, it's lucrative, and number two, it's helping a lot of people way more than they have been before.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll tell you this much: it ain't easy. It's tough. I ran a clinic for 3 years and was management to a degree, at a previous spot. It's like we're running two different businesses,
right?
It's under one roof, right? I guess all the money goes in the same account or however that works. But it's two separate businesses, right? We work through insurance here. Jordan works through, like you pay for a service. So it is two different businesses, clocking in, clocking out, hourly, benefits and all that. It is, from a business perspective, it is challenging. And a lot of people, my gosh, we have Jordan, Jamie, Nick Barbs, we have, we have Alana, we have Joe, we have Melinda, we have, there's just so many PTs, Jen, and staff. Like now you're managing, now we add another strength conditioning coach because they're busier. So it's a lot of people, but it's fun. That's challenging. That's exciting, right? Like being a leader in this kind of environment, like sweet. But like you said, I think this provides the environment that is, that allows for healing, that facilitates healing, whether you're an athlete in high school or college, or you're the weekend warrior who wants to get back to playing golf.
Absolutely.
We have probably more female golfers in here right now than males. And I kid you not, like that's number one goal. Like I want to get my drive up. Like I want to hit my drive like I used to, or I want to add more yardage on my drive. Or pickleball, like that's hot right now in this area. People love pickleball or running. I mean, so it's like, the pressure that they put on themselves every day, the weekend warrior, is probably just as much as some of the kids, except they have more control,
right?
To an extent than some of the athletes, like student athletes, and that allows for more challenges and different angles, and maybe they don't sit at a desk all day and they do stretches throughout the day. So kids are dealing with the same thing right now, unfortunately, but it's all about creating an environment that facilitates healing. That's the key. And if you can have fun while you're doing it, why the heck not?
Yeah. So what's the future with this?
It's a good question. This Ivy Rehab is a special company. Ivy Rehab is the fastest growing physical therapy company in the entire country. So what they do is that I've had the opportunity to I guess there's no other way of putting it, but like get equity, and in return, like, and open up other clinics. So we'll see what happens down the line. In Dr. X podcast with Brandon Eck, we talk about the dream clinic. Like that would be sweet one day. But the plan is to help others, like keep helping people. Like I can only help so many people being in Newtown Square.
Right.
We can only help so many people being in Newtown Square. So let's go somewhere else. So I think if we can extend our reach, but sustain the quality that we're offering now, that's key, right? Like Chick-fil-A is a great example of this. Anywhere you go to get a Chick-fil-A sandwich or the nuggets, whatever, like those nuggets taste the same everywhere you go. That's quality. Not that I'm promoting Chick-fil-A by any means, but the concept is, it's not fast food, I promise. The concept is that like the quality is sustained, and the service is sustained everywhere you go with that company in particular, and that needs to be the key. So if you grow too fast, you're not going to sustain that. So it becomes much more challenging. So the plan is to expand and to help others. In the end, that's the goal. I'm not coming after anybody or any company or make a name for myself. It took, we're out 10 episodes, and we'll probably be 15 by the time this one comes out. And we're doing a monicast, a solo cast now. So I could care less about, me and all this. This is all about giving people the opportunity to do what they want to do, because I've been given that opportunity, so that's what I'm leaving it at.
And bridging that gap.
Bridging the gap. I mean, not only from giving people an opportunity from a PT and leadership perspective, but the athletes. That's what's really cool. To see an athlete go from here on this side to the performance side, and now they're back to playing their sport, like you've seen in some of the some of the stuff that you've posted for us and some of the interviews you've had. Nothing more satisfying. I wish I had this when I was younger. Ken Clark, trained me, and I wasn't injured, but he trained me in a facility that had some of what's in here. But to have the medical side and what the performance side does now compared to then, it's not even on the same level. So to have something like this when I was younger, I would have killed somebody for it. It's so cool.
And we haven't even mentioned the sports medicine side of things. And maybe that's a whole nother episode, but Beatty Harris Sports Medicine, they are right in your clinic, and they're a whole nother resource that your clients and your patients are able to utilize.
Yeah.
Huge.
And Dr. Trisha Beatty was a guest on the podcast. She's been a friend for a long time. Dr. David Weidner is a guest on a podcast. He's been a friend for a long time. And same with Dr. Eck. And all three of them are part of different companies. Dr. Lux, another, not a part of any of those companies. They're all from separate companies. And it comes down to relationships. And this one in particular with Dr. Trisha Beatty, it's funny, when we first moved in almost a year ago now, by the time this drops, it'll be a year, sent her pictures, and she's like, how cool would it be to work in a clinic like that? I would love that. And how ironic that she reaches out to me when all this happened, when COVID happened. She's like, hey, so thinking about putting together my own practice, and I would love to rent space in your office. You got any available for me? I'm like, we could make it work. Why not? Let's see what we can do. And in the end, and this is important for everyone to know, it's another resource for patients. In a business like physical therapy, patients are sent to you from varying physicians. And the same goes for Dr. Beatty. Dr. Beatty and Dr. Harris will get patients from varying physical therapy locations. It is important that those patients go back to those physical therapy locations. Right. So this isn't about check out our facility. You should come here instead of there. No. You're not going to win. You're not going to win any battles doing that. You're not going to win any wars doing that. So, and the same goes the other way around. And we both understand one another with that. And I think that's why we get along so well, because we know there's kind of, I don't want to call it a game, because the game seems like you're tricking people and there's ways of getting around. That's not the case. It's about respect and loyalty and integrity. Integrity is probably the best word, where there are patients that found us through word of mouth. And if they need someone to see, what a great resource. Like Dr. Harris pulls me into the office and goes, check out this ultrasound. What? And I see that patient 5 minutes later, and he tells me, well, right now it's inflamed, so I'm offering this injection, or we're going to do this, or we're doing PRP, so we're going to need, a few weeks to heal, or whatever it may be. And we're part of the game plan. They've come out of the office sometimes and been like, hey, I'm thinking this. What are your thoughts? And we do the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that? I think some of the bigger networks that do have PT in office, I wonder if they're doing that. I'm genuinely curious if those PTs are asking physicians on the spot, what do you think of this? Should I do this, or should I do that? Or what would you do in this case? And vice versa. Talk about humbling, like being humble. A physician coming out and saying, especially in sports med, saying, hey, PT, whoever, what do you think? Is this patient appropriate for PT, or getting my opinion? Come on. You can't beat that. I dare you. So it's awesome having them here. They're very knowledgeable. It's another great resource for our patients.
Yeah. So if a athlete, if a parent, if a sports medicine doc, a physician, a surgeon, or even other physical therapists are interested in what you're doing, how can they contact you? How can they reach out?
I'm happy you said this. So it's simple. We have a phone number here. This is what is most special about what we're building here is I'm a phone call away. DM me on Instagram. So that, to me, that relationships, that's what this is about. So more than happy to respond and help any way I can. So the number here is 610-723-7771. All right, 610-723-7771. And on Instagram, I am M_Quintans DPT. M_Quintans, Quintans DPT. They'll be in the show notes. But yeah, and I'm also on LinkedIn under Michael Quintans, and I think there's a Facebook too. But PTW Newton Square, that's the location. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Good stuff.
All right, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the On Cue Performance Therapy Podcast. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It would mean so much to me if you could leave us a 5-star review so more listeners like you could get this important information. See you next time.